Hello and welcome. I'm Nadira Tudor and you're watching W News, broadcasting live from the Al Arabiya News headquarters. These are our top stories. British-supplied Storm Shadow missiles have been fired into Russia earlier today, but the UK's Prime Minister refuses to confirm reports. The US closes its embassy in the city of Kyiv for fear of a potential attack from Russia, with Italy, Spain and Greece following suit. Meanwhile, Joe Biden approves the provision of anti-personnel landmines to Ukraine as it attempts to slow Russian forces. And Elon Musk could be questioned by British politicians as the UK seeks to investigate a link between X and misinformation being spread online. Air raid sirens have been heard in the Ukrainian capital of Kyiv today as the city prepares for a potential attack from Russia. It follows the US decision to temporarily shut their embassy in the region, with Italy, Greece and Spain doing the same. So far, the UK embassy has remained open. That's despite reports a British-made missile has been fired into Russia. For more on this, I'm joined from Kyiv by our correspondent, Megumi Lim. Megumi, let's start with the sirens. What have you been witnessing on the ground?
Well, there's definitely been a heightened sense of threat and danger today. The first air raid sirens, in fact, rang out overnight as Russia launched drone attacks against Ukraine. Ukraine's Air Force said that air defense systems shot down 56 out of 122 drones. There were no reports of major damage or casualties. But in the afternoon, we again heard air raid sirens ring out across the capital. The sirens came after we saw information circulating online of a possible major attack that was planned for the afternoon. And we saw also more people, although most people here largely ignore these air raid sirens, more people headed to the underground metro stations and bomb shelters to seek shelter during this time. Now, the air raid alert did lift shortly after, about 30 minutes later, without a mass missile attack having taken place. And Ukraine's spy agency issued a warning to residents saying that Russia was conducting psychological operations and spreading false information about a possible attack, and trying to sow panic among the population. Now, authorities said that the threat of air attacks did remain, but also warned residents to remain vigilant against these disinformation campaigns.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously a lot of stress and tension going on and fear if we're seeing that the air raid sirens are being sounded, as you say. And we have seen reports that the closure of the embassies have been prompted by a Russian misinformation operation. Can you confirm whether this is the case?
That's right. Several embassies here in Kyiv temporarily closed today. The U.S. embassy first announced their temporary closure, followed by the embassies of Spain, Italy, and Greece. The U.S. embassy released a statement saying that they had specific information about a possible major Russian aerial attack that was planned for today, and that they had instructed embassy employees to shelter in place. Now, this again heightened sense of threat has come as, for the first time, Ukraine had reportedly used the American-supplied ATACMS missiles against Russian territory on Tuesday, and also on the same day, Russia having updated their nuclear doctrine, essentially lowering the threshold for a nuclear strike. So far, however, the Pentagon on Tuesday did say that there was no indication of Russia preparing to use any nuclear weapons against Ukraine.
Now, we've also heard, Megumi, that the US is preparing to announce more financial support for Ukraine. What are the details?
Well, the U.S. has, in fact, just announced that they have they will be sending $275 million worth of weapons to Ukraine. We are seeing the Biden administration indeed scramble and rush to get as much aid to Ukraine as possible, especially before President-elect Donald Trump takes over the White House. This aid does come at a very crucial time as we are seeing the war potentially escalate. We have also seen, again, Washington having given the green light to use the American-supplied ATACMS missiles, and also reports that North Korean soldiers have joined the fight alongside Russian forces. Some reports are saying that North Korea may send up to 100,000 soldiers to join Russia's war effort in Ukraine. And also, at the same time, Russian forces continuing to advance in Ukraine's east. Now, the Biden administration has also approved the supply of anti-personnel landmines to Ukraine. This is something that the administration previously hesitated to approve because of the risk that it poses to civilians. But military experts are now saying that these anti-personnel landmines will be useful in slowing Russia's advance, especially in Ukraine's east. Ukrainian troops are severely outnumbered. And Russian forces, again, are gaining more ground. And Ukrainian forces are needing to fortify their defensive lines to try to hamper Russia's ability to move forward.
Given the situation that we're seeing unfold in Ukraine further and the new twists and turns of the operation and the war on both sides, there are new statistics out by Gallup on the 19th of November, which reveal that 52% of Ukrainians would like to see the country negotiate an end to the war as soon as possible. But there's been somewhat of a change. How has the attitude of the Ukrainian population changed since the start of the war?
We are definitely seeing a shift in attitude regarding potential peace negotiations here in Ukraine. As you said, the latest Gallup poll that was published on Tuesday, in fact, when Ukraine was marking 1,000 days of full-scale war with Russia, the latest polls said 52% of Ukrainians wanted to see the country negotiate an end to the war, and only 38%, which is 4 in 10 respondents, wanted the country to continue fighting until it won the war. Now, this 38% is a big decrease from results that came out in 2022 during the early days of Russia's full-scale invasion. This was when 73% of respondents said that the country should continue fighting until victory. This number then dropped to 63% in 2023. Now, if we go back to the 52% who said that the country Ukraine should negotiate, respondents also said that they were open to Ukraine making territorial concessions. Now, this is a huge deal because we do know, based on other surveys, that Ukrainians do want to see their territories returned to Ukraine. There are many families and friends being torn apart because many are still living under Russian occupation. But these numbers do reflect the fatigue and exhaustion that has come after fighting against Russian forces for more than 1,000 days now. And Ukraine is also at the same time increasingly losing the prospect of a decisive battlefield victory.
Megumi Lim in Kyiv, thank you. The US has reversed its policy and has agreed to send anti-personnel mines to Ukraine to help it defend itself against Russia. President Joe Biden is in his last 2 months of office before Donald Trump takes over, when US policy towards helping Kyiv is likely to change. Caroline Malone reports from Washington.
1,000 days and nights of war since Russia's invasion of Ukraine started, with no end in sight. Here, air defense units are trying once again to repel a Russian attack on Kyiv. US lame duck President Joe Biden, who steps down in 2 months, is drawing down on all resources to help Ukraine fight back, and now also approving anti-personnel mines. Russia has been using them liberally on the front line since the start of the war, halting Ukrainian attempts to reclaim land. More than 160 other countries ban them due to an indiscriminate impact on civilians. But the US approval comes after also allowing Ukraine to use ATACMS missiles to target deep into Russian territory, and concern that Moscow may retaliate on NATO allies.
Since the beginning of its war of aggression against Ukraine, it has sought to coerce and intimidate both Ukraine and other countries around the world through irresponsible nuclear rhetoric and behavior. Despite what Russia says, neither the United States nor NATO pose any threat to Russia. Russia's irresponsible and bellicose rhetoric will not do anything to improve Russia's security.
On Wednesday, the US told its citizens in Ukraine to shelter and shut its embassy in Kyiv, saying there was specific information of a potential significant air attack. Russia has signalled that it considers a Ukrainian strike into its territory using long-range US missiles an escalation. In an interview released Wednesday, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov reasserted that President Vladimir Putin is open to negotiations, but not to a freezing of the Ukrainian war. Russia is advancing at a pace not seen since the beginning of the war in 2022. But by the end of January, a new US president with different ambitions will be in the White House. Donald Trump has vowed to swiftly end the conflict, with discussions likely to involve negotiations on territory that Russia does not want to concede back to Ukraine. In the meantime, Joe Biden is giving Ukraine more options to defend itself and keep control of as much of its country as it can. Caroline Malone, Al Arabiya News, Washington.
As we pass 1,000 days of the war in Ukraine, the conflict appears to be ramping up rather than calming down. Ukraine now has the means to hit vital targets deep inside Russia, and the Kremlin has responded by lowering the threshold for preemptive nuclear strikes. So, could we be heading towards a nuclear war, or is there still hope for peace? To help answer those questions, I'm joined now from Vienna by Dr. Nikolai Sokov from the Vienna Center for Disarmament and Non-Proliferation, who has also participated in INF, START 1, START 2 and other arms control negotiations in the past for the Soviet Union and Russian foreign ministries. Nikolai, welcome to the programme.
Good evening.
Now, there are multiple comparisons being made between the Cold War of the past and the situation now. It's surely useful, given the latest escalation, to remind ourselves of what happened then and what could happen this time.
I don't think we're right now in a situation of a Cold War. We're actually, I would say, way beyond that situation, because the Cold War was really a time of stability, except for the first maybe 10, 15 years. Today, we're in a period of major instability.
The world was a very, very different place then, wasn't it, Nikolai, from when the Cuban Missile Crisis happened? Why do some parts of the international community feel that the situation is somewhat more dangerous this time? Or perhaps it's just different? What's your opinion about that?
Well, it's more, I would say, no, I would not say that it's more actually dangerous. The Cuban Missile Crisis still remains the most dangerous crisis in the within the nuclear era history. But today we live through, I strongly believe, the second most dangerous actual crisis. We had one more in 1983, but that's still a far cry from what we have today. Today's situation is highly unstable. And the biggest challenge, as far as I see, it's no longer about the strategic balance like the Cuban Missile Crisis was. It was, so right now we live in a period of potential escalation between the United States in NATO on the one side and Russia on the other. Just yesterday, a spokesman for the U.S. Department of Defense confirmed that the United States does not consider itself at war with Russia. The problem is that, according to the Russian official position, after these strikes into the pre-2014 Russian territory. Now Russia considers itself being at the state of war with the United States, and I suppose starting today with the United Kingdom. So that's, I would say, quite unstable and dangerous. I do not actually see the probability of nuclear use, or at the moment at least. Most likely Russia will try to respond in an asymmetric way and in a small, actually, way against the United States and the United Kingdom. If France joined the same policy, then probably France. The challenge here is that in 2 months, there will be a new president in the United States. In fact, I strongly suspect that the decision by Joe Biden to suddenly reverse the policy that has been in place for 2.5 years, a policy that actually should have been probably reversed last spring or at latest last summer. He only changed it only 2 months before leaving office. So I suppose his main goal is, in fact, to make sure that Donald Trump does not have an opportunity to negotiate with Russia, so instead continues to support Ukraine. I'm pretty certain that the Kremlin understands that, and the Kremlin will probably try to limit the degree and extent of escalation, simply waiting for the new president to come to the White House and see what happens then.
Well, Dr. Nikolai Sokov, a lot for us to think about if you think it's the second most dangerous situation that we've seen so far.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, okay.
Unfortunately.
It is unfortunate. Thank you very much for talking to us now. That was Dr. Nikolai Sokov from the Vienna Center for Disarmament and Non-Proliferation. Thank you. Let's have a look at some of the other stories making the news today. Israeli forces have killed at least 19 Palestinians in the Gaza Strip today, including a rescue worker. Medical officials said 12 people were killed in a strike in Jabalia in northern Gaza, with 10 people still missing. Donald Trump has added more famous names to his White House wish list, nominating WWE co-founder Linda McMahon as Education Secretary and former talk show host and TV doctor Mehmet Oz as Medicare Administrator. They follow several other loyal Trump supporters into potential top roles for his upcoming administration. French right-wing leader Marine Le Pen has threatened the country's government after her party's cost of living concerns were not included in the 2025 budget. Le Pen is currently facing a jail sentence, as well as a 5-year ban for politics from prosecutors who've accused her of embezzling EU funds. The funeral of singer Liam Payne has taken place in England today. The 31-year-old died last month after falling from a hotel balcony in Buenos Aires in Argentina. His One Direction bandmates and ex-partner Cheryl Cole, who is the mother of his son Bear, attended the service. And manifest has been chosen as the Cambridge Dictionary's Word of the Year. It's a verb used to will something into existence through the power of positive thinking, and was searched 130,000 times on the Cambridge Dictionary website in 2024, after being used on various social media platforms. British-made Storm Shadow missiles have been fired into Russia today for the first time, as fragments of the rocket are found in Kursk. However, neither the UK Prime Minister or the Defence Secretary have confirmed these reports. For more on this, I'm joined by our correspondent, Olly Barratt, who's in London. Olly, we appreciate a quick update on the Ukraine-Russian situation, as we've been hearing unverified reports of the remnants of British-supplied Storm Shadow in Kursk. Do you have any more details or a response about the reports?
Only really to say that the UK Defence Secretary John Healey has been speaking in the House of Commons here in London in the last couple of hours. He has been asked about this. He has hinted towards this, saying in his words, Ukraine's action on the battlefield speaks for itself, but also saying that he's not able to get into any further operational details. That is a reiteration, really, of the position that John Healey has been setting out in recent days when he has been asked about the prospect of the UK allowing Storm Shadow missiles to be used inside Russian territory. It's also a reiteration of the position we've been hearing from Keir Starmer, the UK Prime Minister, while he has been in Rio at the G20 summit, and also it's exactly the same position that we've heard from Downing Street today, a spokesperson for the Prime Minister saying that they wouldn't comment on these latest reports for operational reasons. We had been saying over the last couple of days that if and when UK authorization for the use of these missiles was given, that we may not hear confirmation about that in any way from London, but that the first we knew about it would probably be reports coming from inside Russia that these missiles had actually been used. So as yet, no confirmation on the record from UK officials, but sources here in London are not diverting us away from the idea that British Storm Shadow missiles have now been used inside Russia by Ukraine.
Olly, thanks for that update. And we're going to move on to another big story that's happening at the moment. Tech tycoon Elon Musk could face British politicians in London as part of an inquiry looking into the spread of misinformation and the use of artificial intelligence on X. Now, Elon Musk will have a lot of questions to answer if he attends a parliamentary inquiry, specifically about X and its role in spreading disinformation and the part it played in UK riots. What is the summoning based on exactly?
Well, he hasn't yet been summoned, but we have had word from the chair of this committee, who's a Labour MP by the name of Chi Onwurah, saying that she would like to summon Elon Musk to give evidence into this hearing, this inquiry into the propagation of misinformation, the role that social media had to play in the rioting that we saw in this country in July and August. Chi Onwurah saying that Elon Musk has strong views on multiple aspects of this, and saying, Chi Onwurah, I would certainly like the opportunity to cross-examine him to see how he reconciles promotion of freedom of expression with his promotion of pure disinformation. Now, as I say, the summoning hasn't yet happened, and the hearings in this inquiry in the UK's House of Commons would be likely to take place early next year. If and when such an invitation is extended, as Chi Onwurah is suggesting it will be to Elon Musk, that's not necessarily to say that he would turn up and answer those questions. As you suggest, quite a lot of questions would be likely to come his way, and some of them quite difficult when it comes to the role that X did or didn't play in spreading information and disinformation around July and August at the time of the rioting that we saw here in the UK. Now, there were some very strong words from Elon Musk towards the UK and UK politicians and UK police at the time of the rioting we saw in July and August, so he clearly has very strong views, as Chi Onwurah says, but whether he actually turns up to answer some of those questions still remains to be seen.
Yeah, we'll just have to watch the space, won't we, Olly? Olly Barratt in London, thank you very much for the updates. Thank you. Let's have a look at some of the top business news now. Carmaker Ford has announced plans to axe 4,000 jobs across Europe. The manufacturer revealed the cuts would take place over the next 3 years, with the majority being in Germany. The company said the decision was made to bolster competitiveness as it looks towards an all-electric future. In similar news, Volkswagen, who are planning to shut at least 3 plants across Germany, resulting in thousands of job cuts, are in a dispute with Labour representatives and are at a risk of strike action. Negotiations are currently taking place between VW management and unions. So far, union reps said the proposals have crossed several red lines and were not acceptable. Meanwhile, British car maker Jaguar has unveiled their updated logo as it turns itself into a fully electric brand. The company will introduce 3 new electric cars in 2026, hoping to change customers' perceptions of the manufacturer. Turning to sport now, and Pep Guardiola has signed a new contract at Manchester City until 2026. Since the Catalan-born manager joined City, he's won a Champions League trophy, 2 FA Cups and 6 league titles with the club. Max Verstappen could become Formula One world champion for the 4th consecutive time this weekend if he beats British driver Lando Norris in Las Vegas. McLaren's Norris must score 3 points more than Red Bull's Verstappen to stay in with a chance of winning the Drivers' Championship. And it was an emotional end to Rafael Nadal's tennis career as his Spanish team crashed out of the Davis Cup in Malaga. 38-year-old Nadal, a 22 Grand Slam champion, announced his retirement last month. He told fans he's left behind a sporting and personal legacy that he can be proud of. Hong Kong Democrat Jimmy Lai testified for the first time today in his national security trial, saying he'd never tried to influence the foreign policy of other countries, such as the US, towards China and Hong Kong. The 77-year-old is the founder of the now closed tabloid Apple Daily and has been accused of colluding with foreign forces. Laura Westbrook has been outside court for us. Laura, what happened during the trial today?
Well, around 100 people waited this morning to get into court to witness the first time media mogul Jimmy Lai took the stand in this national security trial. Now, he faces 2 counts of colluding with foreign forces under the Beijing-imposed national security law and another charge of sedition. He has pled not guilty, and he has been in prison since 2020. If convicted, he could be sent to prison for life. And the 77-year-old was wearing a brown jacket and green jumper and black-rimmed glasses as he appeared in court. He did appear to be visibly thinner, but in good spirits. He nodded, smiled, and waved at his wife and his daughter in the public gallery. They were sitting next to his friend, Cardinal Zen, who's an outspoken bishop here in Hong Kong. Now, as he took the stand for the first time, he stressed he had always opposed violence, and he called the idea of advocating for independence for Hong Kong or Taiwan crazy. Now, he is the founder of the well-known newspaper here called Apple Daily. It was forced to shut down in 2021. And he talked about his reasons for founding his media empire, saying that more information you have, the more you know, and the more you are free. And this is a rare chance for a prominent pro-democracy figure to have his voice heard. Others are in jail, or there are restrictions on speaking out under the national security charges. Now, prosecutors have alleged that Lai sought support from the US in sanctioning mainland Chinese and Hong Kong leaders who had cracked down on the pro-democracy movement. And he has denied using friendships with friends such as the former US Consul General in Hong Kong to influence US policy on China and Hong Kong. And Lai sought to play down meetings with prominent US politicians such as former Vice President Mike Pence and former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. Now, Lai testified that on his trip to the US Capitol, that was his idea, and it was to share what was happening in Hong Kong during the widespread protests in 2019. He said of the meeting with Vice President Mike Pence that he did not ask him to take any action. This is beyond me, he said in court today.
And this case is being closely watched internationally, isn't it, Laura?
Yeah, that's right. Jimmy Lai is probably the most prominent pro-democracy figure that's been arrested under the Beijing-imposed national security law. Some see this case as a test of the rule of law and judicial independence in Hong Kong. And today in court, the trial was monitored by foreign officials, including US consular support staff. Now, Western diplomats and politicians have voiced their concern over this trial. That included US President-elect Donald Trump, who said in an interview in October that he would 100% talk to Chinese President Xi Jinping to get Lai out of the country if he won the election. Jimmy Lai said on the stand that he did not have any direct contact with the president, now President-elect Donald Trump, but that he hoped that Donald Trump's administration could prevent Beijing from imposing the national security law in 2020. Now, on Sunday, the Hong Kong government said it had handled Lai's case in accordance with the law. Beijing and Hong Kong governments have insisted that the national security law has restored order and stability to the city following the 2019 protests. And China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs has rebuked calls for Lai's release. In Beijing, the Foreign Ministry spokesman Lin Jiang called Lai a major mastermind and participant of activities that were anti-China and aimed to destabilize Hong Kong.
Laura Westbrook in Hong Kong, thank you. Let's remind you of our top stories. British-supplied Storm Shadow missiles have been fired into Russia earlier today, but the UK's Prime Minister refuses to confirm reports. The US closes its embassy in the city of Kyiv for fear of a potential attack from Russia, with Italy, Spain and Greece following suit. Meanwhile, Joe Biden approves the provision of anti-personnel landmines to Ukraine as it attempts to slow Russian forces. And Elon Musk could be questioned by British politicians as the UK seeks to investigate a link between X and misinformation being spread online. That's all from us on W News. Thanks for joining us. Hadley Gamble has a Ukraine special coming up. Tom Burgess-Watson will also be here with GNT. Good night.